This episode contains open, honest conversations about mental health, including personal experiences that some viewers may find upsetting.
The stories shared are based on real-life experiences and shouldn't be taken as clinical advice.
If you or someone you know is struggling, support is available. Visit mentalhealthishealth.tv to find support and services wherever you are.
Ooh,
I'm excited!
Nasa could never. Okay, let's go. Okay, Audrey, Ash and Charity. Today we're going to find out what keeps you up at night. The thing you said 5 years ago, the moment that never went away. Let's lay it out on the table and start putting it to bed.
Let's do it.
Period.
Should I go?
Yeah, you go,
All
baby.
right, cool. So question one, what's been stuck on your mind this week?
Oh my God, where to start?
Yeah.
Well, I think this week's been a news-focused week. I think headlines have definitely been on my mind in terms of what's going on in the Middle East, in terms of the wars that are going on, in terms of like our future as the UK, as in terms of just this global situation that we're all in. It's hard to even like state the word. It's hard to even put into words. There's so many worries.
Do you know what? I'm not too far off from you. I just feel like being overwhelmed with like everything that's going on societally in the world. It's really overwhelming. But do you know what does actually keep me up at night? Being worried that I'm becoming desensitized to stuff. So then I do this thing where I make a conscious effort to feel, because especially like with socials and stuff like that, we're scrolling so often and I never want to be that person that lacks empathy. I feel like empathy is one of the most important tools we have at our disposal. And so sometimes it can be that way. And also I have this like guilt thing where if I see something that I feel is going to trigger me, I just scroll past and I'm just like, you're so privileged.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like you're so privileged to be able to just be like, I don't want to deal with that right now, scroll up and it's actually someone's life.
Should I take the next card?
Yes.
Go on, go for it.
Is there a moment from your career that made you lose sleep?
Ooh, I can go first. If anyone's like familiar with like what I do, I've got a podcast and we've been going for, it'll be 10 years next year, 9 years this year. So we've been going for a really, really long time and we call ourselves the Destiny's Child of podcasting because we've been through members like hot dinners. Like it's actually insane. Like we started off technically, real ones know, we started off as a 5, but we never actually launched as a 5. Launched as a 4 and then a year into it, a member left, and then we carried on as a 3 for like 7 years, and then 7 years later another member left, and so now there's just the 2 of us. And you know, it was so weird seeing the 2 different variations of someone leaving, because one was, you know, it was well thought out, like we had a conversation about it, we were just on different pages about what we wanted, and so it was all very, you know, it was all very nice and amicable and all the rest of it. And then the second departure wasn't. And that was very abrupt, and it was at a very, very difficult time. So that was the first time that I would say that we dealt with real backlash. The noise was insane, and it was like the first time like getting death threats and getting like awful things on social media. And for me, I'd never experienced that before. And I think it was twofold because it made me realise, wow, people are really invested. Like you never, you know, when you do what we do, like we love it. And so sometimes it doesn't always feel like work, and you don't realise that people are actually very invested in like what you're doing, and people are like, they want answers and blah, blah, blah. So that was really awful. And at the time I just had my daughter, like literally a week before. And honestly, I couldn't sleep. And I remember coming home from the hospital, crying my eyes out, just being so upset. And my husband was like, it's gonna be fine. Like whatever is meant to be will be.
It's a safety thing as well,
100%.
like on your part.
100%.
Fear-ridden of like losing everything you spent ages
Exactly,
building. And,
exactly,
you know,
exactly.
Your career and your like work is based around your personality and
That
you.
part.
Like there's so much of yourself that's in it.
Clock it.
It feels like people,
Oh
it feels
my
like people are
God.
judging you for your traits,
For your
and
existence.
Honestly,
and not just for the work that you're putting out there. You know, it feels like they're holding you to a standard of that they hold their best friend in their life. It's like, I don't know you. You know, you don't know me.
I feel so seen.
Something I said about a very well-known artist got taken completely out of context, and I had no ill feelings towards this person whatsoever. It wasn't even that I didn't like their music, nothing to do with that. Something got clipped, and the way it was clipped didn't make sense really in its entirety, right? All of a sudden, I wake up, and you probably know this feeling, you know, when like you wake up and all of a sudden a storm has brewed overnight, and you're
just
like,
the WhatsApps from me from
Yeah,
friends.
exactly. Like, why am I getting so many pings? And
Right.
People asking me if I'm okay.
So
and your heart just
anxiety-inducing.
falls out your ass. And I was like, wait, what's going on? What's going on? And at first, I was like, do you know what? Kind of what you were saying, it is not my job to control the narrative of this. I will speak about it when I want to speak about it, but let the internet do its thing.
Yeah.
Like, I need to just not look at this for a minute. And then when it started transpiring, it went into so many other things. And I'm sure that you as a Black woman and you as a queer person can understand this.
Yeah.
It's like, it became so much more than that. All of a sudden, it was like these really racially aggravated comments and all of this stuff. And it was getting so bad that it got to like acid threats. And I was like, oh, wait, this is so much bigger than what I originally thought this was going to be. I thought this was, oh no, she said something about an artist that I don't like. Maybe let's troll her a little bit. And then it got a bit like dark. And I was like, God, at what point do I say I'm scared for my safety?
Yeah.
And it's that. And then I think it's such a hard balance to strike, isn't it? With being like, I want to control the narrative of this, but I also don't want to add any more fuel to the fire to then put myself at risk or danger or, you know, it's just so hard. When I got that comment about the acid attack, I was like, you know, I remember going out one day and I'm really a relaxed person most of the time. And I remember doing this kind of just like, as I'm walking, and I was like, oh, how sad that these comments have affected me to that degree that I'm watching my back as I'm walking the street. Like, that is awful.
But like I said, it's one thing to wish someone death, and or even to say like, I'm gonna kill you, but to threaten to attack someone with acid, to be so specific, violent, that brings images to your mind. Like that's awful. You know, that's traumatizing.
Yeah.
That's traumatizing.
Yeah. Okay. We ready for the next one?
Bring it on, baby.
Honeys. Right. What's been the biggest personal challenge for you to get here today?
I'd say one of them right now. I'm still getting over a relationship breakup. You know, I got married a couple of years ago, and we were only together for a couple of months afterwards, and it all fell apart. And it was one of those ones where it's like, it's not just it was good while it lasted. You know, it was like, actually it was a mistake, and I wasted my time, my energy, and my experience. So it's really hard to deal with that and to accept that for this 3 years that I was with him, that it was a waste of my energy and I was not focusing on the right thing, and to see my work like plateau because of that a little. And, you know, I spend a lot of my time holding up my self-worth with the work that I'm getting, and that's something I've noticed over the years, that when I'm doing well and I'm successful and I've got the jobs coming in, I'm performing all over the world, doing tours and on TV and doing all these fab things, then I feel good about myself. When those jobs trickle down and maybe I've had a few months dry and I'm struggling a little bit with my bills here and there, or it's very easy to feel like a failure, like an absolute failure. And that's been the one feeling that I've been struggling with for the past couple of years, is feeling like a failure, you know? We kind of are embarrassed to talk about breakups and 100%. Emotions and relationships and that kind of falling apart, but you know, it can be so all-encompassing.
Oh my God.
A broken heart can be so overwhelming.
I'm a lover girl. Like, if I'm heartbroken, that is it. I'm like Ben and Jerry's, not speaking to a single soul.
And I like to put my emotions out through my work. That's where my drag comes from, my feelings and my emotions. But because I've been struggling with work and stuff, it's been hard to find the time to make art that is letting these emotions out. I need a good few months off where I can like just spend the time painting some new pictures, creating some new costumes, that's saying what I need to say to the world, that's letting it out. Another personal thing I've always had an issue with is being on Drag Race and coming out about HIV on there. And HIV is where I started my drag. That's where it all comes from, you know, from creating monsters to be the monster that I felt like society saw me as, from the stigma. And it was a form of therapy for me to like create these creatures when I felt like a creature. I felt like I was seen like a creature. It meant I didn't have to tell anyone about my experiences, and I could just like show them my looks and be celebrated for my like camp wrist and my swishy hips and my femme voice, you know? I'd be celebrated and cheered rather than ridiculed. So that was like, it was a hard thing for me to process the HIV diagnosis at 18, but it was also hard for me to come to terms with being so public about that. And when I was so public about that on Drag Race, the comments, you wouldn't believe it. You wouldn't believe some of the stigmatized, horrific comments that I got about that. But also, you know, it was a great thing to do, and I've got no sense of regret.
I was going to say that is so powerful, because for every comment is someone also living with HIV,
100%.
experiencing it and being like, oh my God, this is someone owning it and making me not feel all those feelings that you felt. I'm a monster, I'm by society, I'm labelled as this.
Yeah.
Like, I think that is just beautiful.
And that is why it's so powerful that you shared that, because people do need to be educated on these things. And I think we underestimate the importance of representation for everybody. And I feel like sometimes we box representation in thinking that only a certain type of person deserves to be seen. We all deserve to be seen. And that's why I think it is so important to talk, especially conversations like this where people share their lived experiences, because there is someone out there that can resonate with you. The thing for me is that I'm constantly having this thing of like not feeling good enough. Like, and I'll be very honest, like sometimes there'll be jealousy of like other people that are doing things that I feel like, how comes it's never me? Like, how comes I'm not seen? Like, how comes it feels like it's always the same people getting gigs? And like, what do I need to do more of to put myself out there? But then I have to check myself and I'm like, Audrey, you don't really make content, you don't really put yourself out there, you get invited to things and you don't go. And these things are kind of secular in the sense, do you know what I mean? Like, these things are kind of secular in the sense that like...
1 + 1 equals
exactly,
2.
Babe, the math is like starting to math and I realise that I'm the equation, like I'm the answer, like everything, all roads lead back to me. And I'm just like, you've got to put yourself out there to get back.
Okay, right. How did you work through this and where did you go for support?
I think for me, I always like to look at my inner circle first and foremost. Like I realised that, especially with my friends, you know, your friends are the family you choose at the end of the day. And then another thing is genuinely being in therapy.
Yeah.
And when I started my therapy journey, it was more preventative measures, because I just felt like something's gonna come up and I want to have the tools at my disposal for when it does. And so when I first like started my therapy journey, I wasn't necessarily going through anything, but I just wanted to just talk about my emotions and and it was just really helpful. And then something did happen, and then I went through my separation. I was like, thank God. You know, I was like, thank God I had the tools and I already like had this at my disposal, kind of thing. So yeah, I think for me, the main theme in my like everything I say is talking.
Yeah.
I'm the kind of, it's so much better out than in. Like I always, when I internalize things, it really weighs heavy on me. And I always find that when I talk, I just feel better.
That's so interesting, because I'm actually quite bad at that. I'm like, as in, I'm great at, you two are like, what do you mean you've been chatting? As in, I'm great at talking when I'm in a great mood. I'm actually the opposite of that. So I find that I do the same thing, like I seek my people, but I don't even necessarily seek the speaking of it. I'll journal by myself, I'll work through it. Definitely I have like a few close, you know, my best mate, my dad, they are like my rocks. But a lot of mine is the same thing. It's just like craving that connection with people, but a lot of it is taking myself out of what I'm doing, saying to my dad, can we go on a beautiful countryside walk? My dad will be talking about stuff that half the time I don't care about, but I'm like, anything that I was thinking was this huge thing in my world is nothing in your world. And I was like, it just made me realise I'm literally a dot on this earth, and everything feels so much bigger to you because it's all encompassing to you.
I think that I was trying to think is everything is temporary, and that can be some people can see that as a really negative phrase, but like in my life that brings me so much positivity and hope, and it allows me to relax a lot of the time, remembering that everything is temporary, whether it's a phase of crappy work, as I said, whether it's a phase of heartbreak, whether it's a phase of, you know, success even. Reminding myself that everything is temporary helps me to really take the moment and enjoy the moments of the high points, and helps me to look past the low points.
Okay, can you think of a time a loved one has helped you through a tough time?
Yeah, I mean, I remember being in school, and I grew up in Lancashire, in the northwest, so it was fields and fields and horse and homophobia, you know? It stunk of always the more. Like it was
the worst trifecta.
It was kind of awful, to be honest. And I used to hate doing like school, and I used to hate doing PE and getting changed in the changing rooms and all of that. Like the homophobia that I felt was horrible. And I can remember my mum and dad like coming into school and mum going knocking on these bullies' doors and standing up for me at that point. And I just remember my mum being like this hero for me at that point. You know, my mum is always going to be my hero. And so she's taken me through so many times. And it's really nice to kind of come to a point in our lives where I've started becoming that for her as well. You know, now that I'm an adult and I'm fully grown with my experiences, she comes to me for advice. And that's a really lovely experience.
Yeah, absolutely. You triggered a memory actually about school because you mentioned it, and I remember, I remember my first experience of racism, but being so young, like literally in primary school, I would have been 6 or 7, like so young. But these things never leave you. And I remember, and the thing is, this boy came up to me and he was like, "You're because you're brown." But this was like in primary school, and I didn't even clock.
Doesn't even compute.
I didn't even clock, but then it took this Irish girl that was in my class, shout out to you, like I really do want to find her, because she came up to me and she was like, "Audrey, you mustn't let him tell, that's racist, you mustn't have that." And I honestly had no idea, and I was like, she was like, "You must go and tell the teacher."
No.
And like, this was like a child advocating for me.
Wow.
And I will never forget, a shout out to her and shout out to her parents, because I didn't realise that I'd basically been racially abused at the time. And she called it out and she dragged my hand and we went to the teacher and told the teacher. And I remember the school dealt with it so well. Like they did not play about that. And I know a lot of people don't have that experience, but they really didn't. Like I remember they held a whole assembly. They made his parents come into the school and apologise to my parents. My parents were kind of like, okay, we could say things like it's cool. Like, they made his parents apologise to my parents, like in a meeting with our headmistress. And then they did this whole assembly about bullying and racism and blah, blah, blah. And like, I'm 39 now and I still remember that.
So, what is the biggest lesson you've learned about yourself to this point?
So I was talking to my therapist one time and she told me that I am someone who I have confidence, but she didn't think that I had self-love and that there's a difference between the two. And honestly, it was such a wake up. Like I'd never thought of it that way, because I've always considered myself to be confident, and I always thought that self-love and confidence were interchangeable. I thought it was the same thing essentially. And so I guess like that is something that I'm learning about myself, to find sort of like an equilibrium across both things. I don't think you're ever 100% self-confident or 100% self-loving ever. I think it's ebbs and flows, like it comes and goes. But I think working towards trying to find some sort of like balance is where it's at essentially.
If you're an extroverted person, if you're loud, if you're able to carry yourself in a certain way, people are like, she has all the confidence in the world. And I feel exactly the same as that. It's interesting because people would initially just go, "Oh God, what do you mean? You must be the most confident babe ever." And it's like, yeah, in certain senses, but in so many ways, the self-love element of being so self-critiquing and blah, blah, blah. And I know that comes from, you can have confidence, but also actually not rate yourself deep down. And I think I'm definitely struggling with moments of that, and being able to say, look at what you've done, and you don't need to constantly be reaching for this next and this next. Let yourself just sit in something and like be proud in it. Yeah. And I think that's definitely what I've realised.
Yeah. I've learned that I'm never going to be a finished product, that I'm always learning and always changing and always growing. But I think most importantly, I've learned that like, I don't need anybody else, that I am enough myself. And it's taken me a long time to come to this point where I feel worthy and I feel like I'm enough. But the more I realise it and the more I tell myself it and the more I believe it, the happier I am in general, and the less time I spend putting myself down and the less time I spend berating myself. So I guess alongside learning that I'm worthy, I've also learned that I deserve to feel worthy and I deserve to treat myself with kindness, and I should treat myself with the kindness that I show to others.
Oh,
I think that's been a lesson for me, that I deserve the freedoms and the kindness that I show to others. I don't need to be beating myself up over feeling a type of way or acting a type of way or saying a certain thing, because I wouldn't beat anyone else up over it. Yeah. So be kind to yourself.
Absolutely.
Oh, guys. Lovely time.
Beautiful.
So
nice.
nice.
This for us. Thanks for sharing like your
I'm gonna
experiences.
sleep better tonight, that's for sure.
Yeah, I think we need to go for it.
Oh, 100%.
Cocktails.
We absolutely do.
Love you.